Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in, Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you again for those that are following the show on Facebook. And no, you're not being tricked today. This is our second show. Every once in a while, because of our schedule, we'll do multiple shows in a day. And anytime we get a chance to have Mr. Russo back, of course, we want to be able to do that. Welcome back in, Jack.
Thanks for having me before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, this little Thanksgiving send-away for everybody. So thank you for those that are following us on Facebook. And as usual, just remember, this is a podcast, so we'd love to have you, if you have not done so already, download the podcast. Go to RERL-1577-Jack. You could go to iTunes, Stitcher, all those normal places. It continues to grow, and I want to say thank you before we get started again. I look at those numbers each month, and podcast numbers continue to grow. And the exciting part is we're getting more and more downloads from outside the area, different states, and even internationally. So good stuff. It's a good way to get the communication and get the information out to more people, isn't it? Just another vehicle.
I mean, I had people, I taught a class. I was in Paris last week teaching a class at a business school. People said, hey, I heard you on Facebook.
Isn't that funny to think about? I heard you on Facebook.
You look a lot thinner than your video. I said, I am thinner. They said, yeah, there's something about the video that puts weight on. I said, yeah, it's true. They said,
funny.
It's a really interesting series. Some of them, this English is a second language, but
right.
They like listening. And, of course, it gives them in the class a real heads up. So
right.
Some of the students literally had listened to all 24 or 25 segments. So they were way ahead of other students in the class
right.
that were like literally learning from ground zero. But there's a huge entrepreneurship movement, particularly in Paris, in France. The French government have enabled foreigners who declare that they want to be entrepreneurs and who get accepted to an incubator anywhere in France to get a 4-year visa automatically.
No kidding.
So think about this. It's so hard to get immigration
rights.
Right. But if you don't even have to go with money. You just go with an idea.
Really?
You pitch it to an incubator. So you go on a visitor's...
I took the wrong route.
Exactly. It's like I'm looking. I'm paying so much attention these days to different cities that are trying to promote entrepreneurship.
Yeah, right.
So I'm very keen to know different cities throughout the world. So as you know, I came from Cape Town, Africa, South Africa. There's a movement afoot there. Paris, there's a movement. Just today, I saw in the newspaper, Tulsa, Oklahoma will give an entrepreneur $10,000 in cash, a co-working space, and a discount on an apartment subsidized by a city.
I love it.
Because they're trying to get Silicon Valley to be reproduced in the Midwest.
Maybe we should do a road show.
We should do a road show. I think
Wouldn't that
it would
be fun? Yeah.
Amazingly well received. Because what they're missing is really this talent that exists and is very concentrated here in Silicon Valley, which has so many different ways of helping entrepreneurs succeed. So they're trying every which way to move talent around.
Wow, that's great.
It's a good example.
I love it.
Right?
I saw a number the other day, and it seemed unrealistic, but maybe not.
Yes.
And I think it was like this, by the year 2030, 40 to 45% of the workforce will be somewhat or self-employed.
Yes.
Could that be true? I mean, that's a huge number.
The gig economy is almost in full swing. The Tax Act that was passed under the Trump administration supports the gig economy.
Wow.
Even people who are employed full-time are separately establishing their own little LLCs because they know that whether you will be employed or not is very fragile. You could be working for Intel or some big company.
No such thing as security.
It's not secure.
No.
It's not secure anymore. And it's true not only in the United States, but it's even true overseas. France has been an economy where if you're employed, it's like you have tenure. That's changing.
That's changing
there, too.
It's a big deal. Speaking of security, that is our topic today. Jack and I are going to talk about Internet security and online security, and there's so much fraud. It may surprise you. And I'm in an industry where we deal with money and wire transfers, and we were just talking about before we jumped on the show here, a lot of it takes place. Matter of fact, just out of coincidence, we had someone from compliance visit us today, and she had a stack of papers like this, and we're supposed to go through this stuff once a year.
Yes.
And it's unbelievable how the one thing that went through my mind, Jack, after going through that, and for an hour, it was actually painful.
Yes, I'm sure.
was that a business, almost you have to spend so much time and resources on other aspects of your business, you better be careful because it takes away from the resources and energy towards driving business.
That's right.
That's
right. At the heart of it is we've made movement of money so convenient that the levels of control are not automatically baked in, and people are surprised. So the call that drives this discussion is, I get a call from a very smart individual. I leave everyone nameless just to protect who knows how the case will evolve, who said, look, I lost $2 million in various wire transfers. I almost fell off my chair when I heard this because the person was sophisticated, master's degree in computer science, very sophisticated individual. And as the discussion evolved, it became clear that it's so easy to set up a wire transfer out of some type of account. And there is so much information that individuals and businesses publish about themselves that it's easy for a fraudster to make up a story about something that's due. So in this particular case, someone who claimed to be with the Chinese government claimed that the business owed Chinese taxes and penalties, and the money needed to be wired or there would be arrests of various business executives who were in Hong Kong. Remember, now Hong Kong is part of China.
Right.
You can't even say, well, Hong Kong is a separate country. It's now part of China. The British have given up Hong Kong back to China. And at the end of the day, the worry by the particular person controlling the money was that if the series of wire transfers didn't occur, someone was going to be arrested and jailed.
Wow.
It turned out to be a total fraud. So now the question is, what's the legal recourse? And you could step back and say, this should never have happened. There should have been a second or third, or maybe even the entire board of directors should have been apprised. And I was listening as I drove over to your podcast about pulling money out of real estate and thought, if the money was locked up in real estate, it would take a lot of signatures to get the money.
That's true. That is very true.
So, when the money is in a liquid account,
That's a good point.
It doesn't take more than an electronic signature to get, in this case, $2 million over a series of different wire transfers.
Yeah.
And there was no tax due. There were no basis for it. It was someone who had done enough behavioral research about the company to say, this is a company, they're doing business in China, they have executives here, we can make up a story by phone and email and make it look like we are the Chinese government.
Do you think, Jack, that a lot of people don't realize, or maybe the aha moment for me years ago was that, remember, with all the wonderful technologies we hear about, we talk about Silicon Valley, the magical AI and all this stuff, keep in mind, there are some very bad people that use the same technology to their benefit, right?
Well, they are really actually businesses. They almost view it as though they are legitimate businesses. They're not. At least under our culture, they're not. But they exist in places that have challenging economies, Russia and Eastern Europe. And the view is, hey, if you guys don't want to protect yourselves, then we can take advantage of you.
Yep.
And no one in our government's going to pursue us. It's almost like a wealth transfer between nations.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're a rich nation, we're a poor nation. You're not as smart as we are. We're pretty smart. We're going to move money around, and there won't be recourse except theoretically, and that's what we're interrogating for this particular client. Can you say that the particular bank involved knew or had reason to know that this fraud was occurring and didn't give enough notice to the clients that, look, if you get a phone call or an email from this particular location, they're fraudsters, we should actually flag. So this is the point about security.
Okay.
Banks will have to more and more, as a core competency, bake in security. The way in which you might say the real estate people require like the signature of the spouse, each spouse has to sign, notary, fingerprint, photograph, all this stuff that tries to make sure you really are deciding to take out this loan or to do an equity exchange or do something with your real estate value. You can do it. It's going to take a few hurdles to get it done, but those hurdles are like safeguards against fraud or against mistake. In the world that we live in today, where money can be moved around kind of like it's water, those different bank-level securities don't really exist. The banks just assume you want to do business, with that counterparty, we're going to let you do business regardless of whether it's legitimate or not.
Yeah, and something else. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to continue talking about online security, fraud, a lot of the issues. And when I come back, I'm going to talk to you and ask you, Jack, a little bit about, who is to blame?
Yes.
That's going to be an ongoing thing, that who's to blame? Is it the person? But we'll address that when we come back. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Stick with us. For those that are following us on Facebook, we'll be back in just a minute.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.
How would you like the opportunity to secure a record low interest rate while buying and or selling your home? In addition, how would you like to save 20% or more on your entire real estate transaction? Finally, how would you like to bundle all your real estate services in one location? Well, now you can achieve this with BundleSelect.com. That's right, save on real estate lending and title. With BundleSelect.com, technology and a personal concierge are at your service to save you time and money. BundleSelect's hand-picked team of experts will save you thousands of dollars by bundling real estate lending and title services. BundleSelect.com gives you all the control, including using your own realtor. I'm Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, and I have been on the radio educating consumers for years. I'm here to tell you BundleSelect.com is the best way to save money on real estate. By bundling services, you could save tens of thousands of dollars. Visit BundleSelect.com.
The estimated minimum savings are based on a comparison with the national average. Individual results may vary, and the estimated savings are not guaranteed. Bundle Select Inc. is a licensed real estate broker. California Bureau of Real Estate Broker license number 004666902.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We're talking about online fraud and security and alike, and a lot of different issues around it. We have Jack Russo in studio. Most of you know that for the last, it's been probably 4 months, maybe 5 months.
Maybe going on 6.
We've had a series we started, Jack and I, starting something new in Silicon Valley. We've ran the gamut, and actually we could go for the next 2 years and probably not even touch the topics to do with entrepreneurship and all the things that go around it. Just today, it's a perfect example. We're talking about, online fraud and security and the amount that's taking place. It's overwhelming, and it's actually kind of funny. We have to take every year we require it after the Dodd-Frank rules and all the CFPB and stuff.
Right.
If you do financing, you have to sit through this class for 8 hours every year and go through all these things, and which is fine. But one of the things we found out that, as much as people thought that the days are over of, mortgage fraud and, what do they call it? When someone gets into your rental and stays there and doesn't move, squatting or something like that.
Right.
And the biggest offenders are, number one, and still in California, some of the biggest fraud schemes that take place.
Yes.
But I think the perception, Jack, is, we have better technology, we're smarter, we're wiser. Why is fraud still on the rise?
People are very trusting. I guess it starts there. There are a lot of people that really believe that when someone gets them on the phone and says, we're with, blankety-blank agency, tax collectors, whatever, they just believe. And those people who carry out the fraud are very good actors or actresses who carry out a script in a way that sounds believable. So this is sometimes called the behavioral side. The research that they can do, and this is a big point, and I was trying to explain it to the client, the potential client that called. Look, you don't realize how much information you disclose about your business and yourself online, even beyond your website. I said, you should do a search, a really detailed search, not a general Google search, but a detailed search. And you will find that detailed search that there is all kinds of information about you, your executives, where they live, what they post, how they blog, what they say about themselves. So if a fraudster studies that the way someone might study sort of a market or a product or a competitive situation, and that's what these fraudsters are doing, they're a business, they study it enough to say, we know that you have this executive located in Hong Kong and this executive located in Beijing and this executive located otherwise in China. We're going to arrest them for tax fraud if you don't make these payments. And, of course, it sounds believable because they name the executives who are in Hong Kong and Beijing and otherwise in China because they know from the Internet, from mining the data, they literally take detailed, even more detailed than Google, search tools and drill down. So a lot of this information is right there on the Internet, but it sounds as though they have it from some sort of equivalent of the FBI, which they don't, but they pretend that they do. So if someone called you up and said, I know that your daughter is currently in school at, let's say, University of Nebraska, blah, 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 and, she's run up a big debt here, and we're going to arrest her unless you wire some money. You might say, wow, she's in trouble. She's probably too embarrassed to tell me. There's a lot of that kind of fraud.
Never thought about that.
By analogy. But because it sounds so believable, they know my daughter's name. They know my daughter's located at that university. So there's enough behavioral information to lead you to believe. And then the follow-up email looks real and often will have some logo that looks as though it's from some authorized location. And they're doing this thousands of times. They only have to hit one or two for a couple of $1 million, then it's a great payday. Amazing. It's really like fishing for big marlin. You know you're not going to get a marlin every minute or every hour, but you know what? You get one a week, and it's a big catch. So that's what they're doing. And then the person wakes up at some point and says, gee, what happened? And, the way this, just to give you an example of how this plays out, the accountant, the auditor, was doing the end-of-year books in anticipation of closing the books next month, and said to the executives, what's this $2 million that's been paid to some overseas authority?
Oh, my God.
And the board was like, what $2 million? Well, that $2 million came out of current cash.
Whoa.
That's a lot of the cash account. Let's talk to the CFO where that money goes. CFO said, I paid our taxes in China. What taxes in China? The U.S. accountant was, you're not subject to any taxes that we know in China. Well, I've got all these emails saying we were supposed to pay these taxes. So the board's like, what's this? And so that starts the investigation. And then it becomes like, that's completely bogus. And, of course, the company losing $2 million in cash, maybe if you're a gigantic company, like I was going to say Uber. I mean, they are a big company. But, I mean, if you're a really big company, maybe it's rounding error. But when you're a small company with, say, $20 million in sales, $2 million in cash is a big loss. And the company, of course, is like, how did this happen? This first step, and really the first takeaway, is you've got to have some internal controls, which you get to a certain size, you're more than a sole proprietorship, you really are a company, the company has an organization, you really need two signatures on numbers that are bigger than, say, $5,000, $10,000, some limit, so that mistakes, and this sounds like an innocent mistake, of course the board is like, maybe the CFO is in on it, maybe there's a bribe going on, her husband happens to be overseas at the same time. Maybe he's part of the scheme. You never know where this is going to go. And in fact, the first step that the board will do, first they'll fix the internal control problem, but then the second step they'll do is they'll ask for an internal investigation to look at all the details of, is this person who's the CFO in financial trouble? Maybe this was part of a bribe scheme. Maybe it's her husband that's driving it. There's all sorts of reasons often in the background.
So let's go through. We have a couple of minutes left. So if someone's listening to this, there's an employer or they're an entrepreneur or a company or whatever size. What, from a legal perspective, Jack, what would you advise them what types of things should they put in place to, first of all, try to safeguard it? And then, what kind of education? I guess that's part of it too, right? Educated employees.
That's right. Yeah. So when you start moving from being a sole proprietorship to really a company and a corporation and with an organization, you want to give a CFO a certain amount of discretion, but you really want multiple executive signatures so you have an internal control. Okay. So that there's more than one witness to why are we moving this money. So someone can ask, are we sure that this is a true invoice? This could be fraudulent. This could be make-believe. Let's get a second, third, fourth opinion. Okay. This is a lot of cash. So you really want to have an internal control. Number two is you really want to make sure that you have some way to account for what are you doing with this money so that there's an audit trail. In this particular case, there were actually lots of wire transfers, and a lot of the wire transfer receipts were not kept, which of course is suspicious in and of itself. Right. So now just getting that from the bank, because sometimes the wire transfers can be reversed. The banking system has ways when mistakes are made for reversals to occur. This doesn't sound like a mistake. This actually sounds like actual fraud. Probably all those accounts at the other end are closed and you won't be easily able to trace. But this is where in some ways the U.S. banking system tends to be a lot more responsible than the overseas banking system. U.S. banking system, the know your customer regulations requires identification, copies of passports, copies of driver's license. So there's some traceability. So if you or I were to defraud someone, they could trace back to who owned that bank account, where is that person, and you could sue them in a court of law that would say you shouldn't have taken that money. Of course, when you reverse it and you're dealing with countries like China and Russia and Eastern Europe, I don't want to be derogatory, they're great countries, but there are fraudsters there, and the legal system hasn't yet developed to enable recourse. So that's the second part. You want to make sure the counterparty is someone that your underlying accounting system recognizes as a true vendor or a true remittance. And then the third point is, if you can get insurance, and sometimes you can, for this sort of error or omission, sometimes you can consider it a director or officer error, sometimes it's errors and omissions, sometimes it's other insurance. When you get to a certain size as a corporation, you just pay for insurance because these mistakes do get made. And then you really have to have some alternative recourse than just, we can hire a lawyer in China and Beijing to try to pursue this. Now, obviously, you're going to make a police report here. You're going to make a claim. You're going to say, hey, to the bank, because sometimes the bank even knows or has reason to know. And then there's even the potential of going after the bank, and that becomes another layer. You were asking at the break, well, how is this all going to shake out? Well, the banks are going to have to become, as part of their core competency, they're going to have to get a lot tougher in identifying fraudsters to make sure that counterparties that are setting up accounts and are using those accounts to claim that they're government agencies, the banks themselves are going to have to start to put robots, search robots in place. Say, hey, that guy is claiming to be a tax collector on a commercial account. They're not a tax collector. That's make-believe. We've got to stop that. They're using our bank to commit a fraud. And we've got to stop that. So that's how the banking system can have perhaps more credibility in making sure a counterparty is real.
Well, everybody's got to take responsibility for sure, and we'll do another show on this because it warrants a lot more information. So before we cut out today, Jack, remind everybody about your practice, what you practice, and then how they could reach you.
So Jack Russo, Computer Law Group. We're in Palo Alto, California, downtown Palo Alto, also in San Francisco. The Palo Alto number is 650-327-9800. The best way to reach me is Jack, J-C-K, at computerlaw.com. Happy to talk to you. I spent a lot of time on the phone with this group, no charge, just telling them this is what I see, this is where the potential angles are, put them to work. They said, man, just by the questions you asked, you've helped us a lot. We hadn't thought about some of these questions in terms of looking at various other approaches for trying to get some recourse. Get
the right advice. You could always do that. And for more information, go to RE Radio Live. And also, Jack's information is on the website as well. So if you miss it or if you need to contact us, let us know. Thanks again for tuning in. And thank you for those that are continuing to follow us on Facebook and download the podcast. We appreciate it. Until next time, have a great afternoon and take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.